Round of applause for taking time out today to stand against racism. My name is Professor Takia C. Graham. I teach in the English and Philosophy Department, and I am honored to be a part of this program. I'm also a member of the Diversity Council, one of the sponsors of today's events. We've been doing this at least for the past 6 years. I've been a part of it for about 5 years. I would also like to introduce to you, or have him introduce himself, my colleague.
The story of my life. Okay, no. Good. I guess it's still morning. Snowy morning, but we'll take it, right? I am Professor Vertus Robinson. I'm an assistant professor of history and African American studies, as well as the faculty coordinator for the Democracy Commitment. And we're here to stand against racism. 50 years ago, and last month, a group of people decided that they're going to stand against racism. They were in Alabama, in Selma, and they stood across a bridge, and all they did was walk. And they stood as long as they could until they were beaten down and trodden over and hoses sprayed on them. And what were they doing? They were standing against racism. The racism that regulated people because of the color of their skin to second-class citizenship. They could not vote. They could not serve on juries. And so their rights were denied to them. Some of that is still going on to this very day. Every day, we can open up the newspaper or the CNN app on our phones and see what is going on, the racism that is going on. So we're here to stand symbolically with those who are struggling, with those who are downgraded because of the color of their skin or because of their national origin, or the fact that they're not 100% American, and what is that? This social, political construction of race, this illusion of race, but the actions against these people, the racism. So, we're going to stand today. And while we're standing, we want to know, what are you standing for? Or what are you really standing against? What exactly? Because racism comes in all different forms. What type of racism, or what aspect of racism are you standing for today? Now I see some people sitting, and what we're going to ask you to do is, if you're sitting, that's fine, but stand with us in body or in spirit. Okay?
So there'll be a portion of the program today where we'll ask you actually to move around the foyer so that we can get a nice picture of you. But my colleague started having a conversation with you about this illusion. And part of the theme of this year's event is the illusion of inclusion. And so many of you, when you look around at where you live, many of us are still living in segregated communities. We might go to school in integrated communities, but we still go to work. We still go to church. We still live in places where most of our neighbors look like ourselves. And so one of the worst things about this presidency is that people, because there's a black man in office, have said that we are post-racial. But if we look at the numbers of black folks who've been killed, if we look at the numbers of black folks who are mired in poverty, if we look at the rates of incarceration, if we look at the rates of homelessness and houselessness, we'll see that people of color are still disproportionately at the bottom of all progress movements and at the top of racist movements. So one of the challenges that we face is that many of us say, oh, well, this is a colorblind society. I don't see color. But when we look around, if a gray hair pops in your head, oh, you see that gray, right? If I tried to give you some Monopoly money, oh, you're not trying to spend any pink money. If I look around at your clothes, you want to make sure that you match to some degree of whatever your personal style is, so we see color. It's not seeing color that's problematic. The problem is when we begin to discriminate based on color. When we have power and control over hiring practices, over housing practices, even as professors in the ways that we interact with our students. When we have power and we don't make sure that that power is dispersed equally, then we have a problem. So today is just one step. We're taking a symbolic stand to give you an idea that there's still so much work that needs to be done. There are still many steps that need to happen. So when you leave here today, one of the terms that we like to talk about is pushing this plow, having your hands on the plow. We want to make sure that you don't just stop and do your work here. You got to tell somebody, to tell somebody, to tell somebody that there's still a problem going on. You cannot be a part of the problem. You cannot walk around and be a caricature of what a person of color looks like. You can't walk around with your pants sagging. You can't walk around using the N-word. You can't walk around not doing your classwork. And then when it come to me and Professor Robinson, oh cousin, you know they keep the black student down. Yeah, my cousins failed my class too. You gotta do your work. And so the idea of today is to make sure that we begin the work to level the playing field, and everybody has to be involved. Black people, brown people, we don't have the market on saying, oh, well, this is our struggle, we got to do it ourselves. No, we need many plow pushers of all colors. This is not a problem that was created in communities of color, so this is not a problem that communities of color will be able to fix by themselves. And each of you have power. Put some things into your children. Encourage your children to know more about where they come from. Don't be ashamed of slavery. This is a history professor here. Don't be ashamed of that. You didn't create that. Be proud that you come from a people who were able to sustain and were able to overcome and were able to survive past their due date, past their expiration date. Don't walk around and say, oh, wow, you know, all black people weren't kings and queens. All black people weren't slaves. There's not one single story of the black experience. But what we can do is that we can change the future narrative of black folks in this country and people of color in this country. And if you're not a person of color, you want to be a part of this movement. You want to stand and work against racism because you want to be able to tell your children and your grandchildren and your siblings and your legacy that I was a part in making a sustainable difference and changing a community of people. I didn't just say, oh, you know what, I like Takia and Vertus at work, but I'm not inviting them to my house, right? Oh, I'm not racist because I got a white sister-in-law. I'm not racist because I used to date a black guy back in college. But what you really think. And let's have those conversations. Let's have those conversations where you say, you know what? I believe the stuff that I see on the news about black men. I believe it. And then I'm gonna say, okay, now let me show you something different. Because the news and your own ignorance will have you hating people. My people perish for a lack of knowledge, right? So we have to be mindful of the energy that we're putting into the world and the information and misinformation that we keep repeating as true. We have to be mindful of the ways that we carry ourselves and then we want respect from others. We have to be mindful of the expectations that we put in for other people that we won't put for ourselves. Oh, you gotta do better. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Well, I ain't got no boots.
Right.
What am I supposed to do? I'm hungry and you talking to me about progress? Get out there and start helping people. Get out there in these communities and start working to provide food, to provide clothing, to provide shelter, to provide knowledge. All of us can do something. Don't get me started, you know I teach.
Yeah, this is something that we're very, very passionate about. And so, join us now as we go along here and wrap around, and also where you're standing here, let's create a chain of standing against racism. So if some people can, we don't want to see any open spots around here.
We're gonna fill this place.
We're gonna fill this place.
This is perfect.
And we want to make sure that we keep this energy going. We want to make sure that we encourage each other, that we celebrate each other, that we love each other, that we hold each other accountable. We want to make sure that today is just the beginning of the wonder that we can do when we all come together. Go ahead and spread in the outer skirts in that outer part of the foyer near the elevator. Spread all the way around.
Okay, I hope you can see though. I don't know. Hopefully I did. Let me use that. This tab before, I'm like so hurt. The tab before.
spread around the
Right, wrap around the entire 5th floor atrium.
Right. Instead of spreading in the middle, y'all spread in the outskirts. And then take pictures, because we'll be posting these on Facebook, and we'll be sending these to the president's office.
You'll be able to hear us. Keep on going.
Keep on going. Keep on going.
Spread all the way around.
Spread all the way around. Next to the elevator, yeah.